Hello, Dr. Castleberry here, back with the next part in our digital dialogue asynchronous lecture series for COM 2113, Media Culture and Social Influence. And we're taking questions about week 2 readings, and I want to shift gears to questions from Michelle and see if we can dig deeper into the content, right? Michelle writes about Arthur Asa Berger's Media and Society, Chapter 1. And Chapter 1 is titled Media in Our Thoughts and Lives. And, right, here we go. Media and Society. And Michelle writes, what do you think Berger means when he says, quote, so the question arises, what influence, or in the language of social science, what effects, has your incredible exposure to the media had on your life and the lives of all kinds of other people like you who collectively form American society or who are members of any other society, end quote. Do you think, here's the question, do you think it's possible to not be affected by media when using it? Why or why not? What a great question. What a bold question, right? Michelle's going straight to the source, right? We're calling media out directly. And that's fun. That's fun. It's a good discussion to get into. We have an alternative course in the major, digital persuasion in the social media age. And if we link these two terms together, I think it helps us maybe answer this question for Michelle, right? And when I say link the two things, link the two phrases of that course, the two tenets of that course together. First of all, let's recognize that persuasion, right? That traditional practice. And let's also see it as a kind of course or curriculum that falls into communication or communication studies, our discipline. All right, so persuasion is I'm gonna paraphrase Aristotle when he defines persuasion as all the available means, when he defines rhetoric, right, as all the available means of persuasion. Persuasion is one of the key tools to successful communication, right? The difference between simply exchanging information or informing someone about something is that you're trying to shift maybe an idea, a mindset, or action outright, right? You're in essence making an argument of sorts. And we encounter persuasion all the time. If we didn't have media, we would still encounter persuasion, right? We're persuaded by those that have influence over us. And sometimes that influence is overt, right? It's very clear, it's very direct, and maybe it's very oppressive. But sometimes that persuasion is covert, right? It's subtle. It happens over time, right? And that kind of subverted persuasion is sometimes what we would link and understand as social influence, right? Hence the course title here, right? Media culture and social influence. That these things happen in dribs and drabs over time. And we start to kind of pick up on it sometimes invisibly, right? Unconsciously, and sometimes very consciously. And the question asks, do you think it's possible to not be affected by media when using it? I mean, how do we not be affected by media? First of all, let's talk about it from an aesthetic and practical media effects standpoint. Media is stimulating. Mass media is stimulating. It's a stimulant, right? It thus affects us immediately. Let's go old school, right? We're talking about mass mediums, plural, in this course. Print. A few of you have commented in these first few weeks about print, whether or not it's on its last leg, right? Is it going away forever? What's happening there? Why are we even talking about it? And it's an important medium. It's a foundational mass medium for Western culture, especially. But let's think about a newspaper. What does it mean to kind of feel and hold and touch a newspaper, right? To get that smear of printed ink on your fingertips if after prolonged usage, or kind of like the crispy sounds of the pages turning and the kind of the rattle, the texture in your hands, right? I mean, it's not unlike a sensation we go through when we're wrapping gifts for a birthday or for a holiday celebration, what have you. Or unwrapping for that matter. There's a textual kind of physical aesthetic experience that we're engaging there. And how is that too different from our smartphones today, right? Let's think about that physical encounter with relation to when was the first time you switched from, and not saying everyone has, but when was the first time you switched from one of those kind of flip phones or keyboard phones to a slick-faced a smartphone, right? With touch screen. Remember the first time you kind of handled maybe iPad or a tablet of some sort, and just that delicate kind of that touch, that sensation that was going on? All right, that's media effects, right? That means having you're interacting with it, and that we're not even talking about the content on it. Does that make sense? So these different kinds of ways that media can affect us, like immediately in our physical space. But then, of course, we often are thinking about like the information that we're intaking, the information that we're receiving, the messages that are just blasting out there, whether they're appropriate, inappropriate, right, polarizing, all over the emotional spectrum, and they are. All right, absolutely. I mean, how do we disconnect that in our experiences? One of the consequences of prolonged uses of certain types of media is a kind of numbing effect, right? But that in of itself is still an effect, or maybe even an affect, which is a different kind of term, right? There's a difference between effect. We're thinking about cause and effect, or the effects of something over time. But affect is often in relation, and that's not the word. The term affect is dropped in here. We have an affect alert. But this is often in reference to emotion, our emotional experience, our emotional persuasion, and so on. And I would once again say, even like the feel of something, to feel, right, is to ignite, an emotional sensation. It's sensory in the body. To be stimulated by the LED lighting, right, or the wild the sights and sounds of media and technology in the digital age, in a high definition age. And that's a key turning point. I just want to put a pin in that. The high definition is a paradigm shift in the history of technology. But that affects us because we're having an emotional experience. We not in this course, but in one of our sister courses, when we get heavier into effects and ethics in conversation, we look at a video about young children and their exposure to media and the effects. And if any of you all have ever kind of given that young, early age child kind of access to media, and they're instantly addicted, right? I mean, they don't want to give it up. They would not give it up if you didn't sort of protract it, like if you did not take it out of their hands. And what happens among those first times that you kind of retrieve such an item from a young child's hands? They have effects. They have a withdrawal, right? And that can take on many surprising forms. And so we're absolutely kind of brought into a relationship, whether we're conscious or unconscious of it, with our technology. It has an enormous effect. I don't know if there's like invisible cat ghosts around me. What I suspect is happening is the vibrations, the vocal vibrations of my voice is tickling my epidermis, right? Has anyone ever said that kind of phrase out loud before? I believe, right, I'm making an unsubstantiated claim, the vibrations of my vocal cords are tickling the epidermis. They're causing an itch, right? My nose is sensing it. Maybe so the glasses are resting on the nose. Is this a media effect? No, this is my own personal foible. But I apologize for breaking protocol and sort of touching the face so much. Don't worry, people. I'm probably like washing my hands 3 times in between every segment or something like that, right? As I turn circles and recite Hail Marys. Next question: do you think that media aesthetics plays a role in how much people use media? Why or why not? Whoops! I think I answered that question already, right? Of course I did. I was anticipating the question, and I basically unpacked that because it's absolutely the case that these aesthetic experiences are what draw us. They lure us back to various mass media again and again. And let's think about how much technology is tailored to the user, right? And that plays a role, and that has a connection there that we can understand and appreciate. Great questions early on. Great questions. Let me jump through a few from Seth real quick before we take another break. Seth writes, why do we study theories of communications? I sense a trick question here. I suspect many of you could answer this, which is great because that's the sign of a great discussion question, right? Is you defending the responses to an inquiry or us being critical of something which we ask you to do and be of with your various media writing exercises. We study. Well, this says communications, not mass communication, not media. But why do we study theories of communication? Why wouldn't we? We're in a world where communication makes or breaks decisions every day. Who we spend our time with, who we spend our lives with, what groups and culture we interact with, what businesses we visit and participate with, which ones we shun or ignore, or what do you call it? The thing everybody loves to do, like cancel culture, right? But we make all these decisions. These are communicative decisions. We make a lot of these decisions based on emotion as much as often as pure experience, and it has to do with how they're communicating themselves to us, right? I still can't conjure that word. I've got word block today, and it gets itchy nose, word block. I've got all the symptoms, right? It's a media virus, right? It's all that lamestream media with myth. By the way, it's conspiracy language. Don't believe the hype. But we study theories of communication. It's important. How do we progress as a society? And I'm not talking about progressivism. I'm talking about how do we come together more, or how do we do business? Let's put communication aside. How is the world tailored today? We're in what's referred to as a globalist society, right? We practice globalism, meaning we have trade and business and travel and communication across boundaries and people groups and belief sets and so on. And all of that hinges upon good communication. And how do we parcel down and divide up and understand that the minutia, the mind-boggling minutia between quality communication, poor communication, everything in between, quote unquote, good, bad, whatever, the likes, the shares, the data analytics. We have to understand communication, and we need language to talk about it and understand it. And what are theories if not a superset of specific, refined terms and skills and ideas about a subject area, any subject area, and a way to gain mastery over recognizing how the world works so that we can work well within it and others can work well within it. That sounds good. All right. How does the way we communicate change over different generations? We need to look no further than the history of mass communication, right? People used to communicate. I mean, when's the last time you wrote a telegraph to somebody? I'll wait. Right? Who's practicing Morse code anymore? Candygrams. Letters? Are we writing letters anymore? Sometimes Sometimes we do get these handwritten letters in the mail, and they're usually from these softer organizations or softer kind of leadership groups. I think a lot of ministers still practice this because it's a very interpersonal, it's kind of an intimate form of communication exchange, and they're trying to break that barrier of what's otherwise a very kind of cold and distant society, at least in North America, right? North America, pause, is seen as what we refer to as a cold culture climate, where we have heightened individualist practices. That's what's referred to as an individualistic society versus a collectivist society. A collectivist society tends to occur in warm culture regions. So when you think about, countries closer to the equator, tropical regions tend to have a collectivist approach to practicing culture. The further north you go toward colder regions, you tend to have culture practicing more isolated politics. Look at Europe and look how they practice throughout those various regions and culture groups and nation states. Okay, you're going to find a lot of similarities. Study those histories. Study that diaspora of people groups moving and how they interact, and you'll be surprised at the patterns that emerge. And those are terms we get introduced to in a field like communication, right? But we share it. We share it once again with areas. Sociology would be very interested in that, and other ones as well. Okay. Let's see. Will millennials change the way that we communicate via text or social media, etc.? You know what? Here's the truth. Who's going to change the way we communicate? The people that build things that we communicate with, right? Like innovative people that have at their fingertips the ability to write new code or invent new things. But you know what? People with money, they change and shape society all the time. Look at how we've written laws in this country in the last 20, 25 years. Is it purely because people want this, or do we have sort of what I'm going to use a dirty word here, those lobbyist groups that are it's a kind of pay per play opportunity to write new laws and eliminate old restrictions and so on. It's about who has access and power. Very interesting. Already within this week 2 lecture series, I've hit upon themes of race, class, gender, power. And so if this is ringing a bell, our week 2 assignment dives into these same themes. So what an amazing coincidence, wink, that we're hitting these subjects simultaneously. But great questions, and we're going to hit more up momentarily. So come back for more.